Hey everyone, welcome back to Snack Time. My name is Ben, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at HortusFox. So HortusFox is an open source project for plant management. And that could be plant management from 1 or 2 plants to an entire greenhouse. Whatever your needs, chances are HortusFox is going to help you meet them. So this software truly is amazing. It lets you track everything. And from the plants, when the last time they were watered, maybe who watered them, all the way to the shovels and dirt and pots that you have in your inventory. So let's go ahead and jump into the platform. And then once I'm done showing you around a little bit, I will show you how to set this up using Docker, Portainer, and Nginx Proxy Manager in case you want to make it internet facing. All right, so jumping in, we're going to be first prompted to sign in, and we do have a default credentials of just admin@example.com and password. That is configurable when you do install it. I went ahead and added a couple of plants in here just to give you something to look at. And I also kind of enabled all the bells and whistles that will also take you through during the installation process. All right, let's jump right in. We have a bunch of things at the top here. And let's start with this menu. We can add a plant. And to do that, we just click on the Add Plant button, and it prompts us to type in the name of the plant followed by the location. So let's just do this. Let's do a fern, and the location is going to be, let's see, I think we can click on this. Yep, and drop that down and select home. So you do define your locations at another screen, and that way you can kind of organize. This would be great for like somebody that's running a greenhouse or something and needs to track a whole bunch of different plants, and maybe they have them in different buildings or different sections. I think that'd be awesome for it. After that, we can add a couple of fields to this. We can add the scientific name if we want to. We can give it a link. So I'm just going to call this Furnus Maximus. I'm not a plant guy, so you do whatever you do. I'm just going to give this a quick little link, www.fern.com, and hit save. And that way, when you do, if you ever want to click on the link, you have that that text is now a link that you can go right to. The location we've already defined, and next up we say, okay, well, when did we water this plant? When was it last repotted? When was it last fertilized? Is it a perennial, annual, cutting month? All those sorts of stuff that, like I said, plant people love. I am not a super plant person. I do have some succulents that I have not managed to kill. So I'm not anywhere near considered an expert, but I do love open source projects, and I do like this one. We can adjust pretty much any of this text. We can say the 30% humidity maybe, and a light level is maybe half shade. From here, you can add tags. If you wanted to tag this, you can add a picture if you want to for your plant to give it a way for you to easily identify it. We can add multiple photos here. And we have at the very bottom our log, which is really cool. So this keeps track of all the information that we have entered. Anything that's changed will be logged down here at the bottom. And we can always add an entry if we want to, or we can view the history. Another thing you can do is you can clone this. So if you've already set up one, maybe you have a bunch of these types of plants, you can go ahead and clone it. And then you can show the QR code, which I believe just takes you straight to this this page, which is totally cool. So like if you're, maybe you wanted to keep track of them and you wanted to print out the QR code and attach it to the plant's pot. And that way, you know, you come buying it, you can scan it and see like, oh, okay, this is the last time it was watered. This is the last time, whatever. So I think that's kind of cool. I mean, whoever thought of this software and put it together, which we'll cover in a little bit, really kind of thought of everything. So they must have really been into plants, and I can understand that. It's good. All right. So next up, we have a couple more things at the top here. We have our tasks. So if there's a task that you need to run and keep track of, maybe like a to-do or a done, this is a great place to put that. So maybe we need to reorganize our plants, and the due date, maybe let's make that tomorrow, and you can make it reoccurring. That's kind of cool. All this stuff is tracked. All these things are recorded. Any of the stuff that you've done in here can be pretty much monitored. You know who exactly created it. You can create multiple users. So if you have a whole bunch of people working in your greenhouse, you can give them all accounts and you can track everything that they've done. So we can see, we can click on our done, and that moves that to our done category. Yep, and recorded that too. All right, next up we have our inventory. So this is great if you are tracking like the things that you have that are not plant related. Like maybe you want to keep track of the amount of fertilizer you have or soil. Maybe you want to keep track of number of pots. You can create groups, and you can also create new. So let's do this. Let's create a group, and we'll just call this supplies. And the label will just be supplies as well. We can add that. And now let's do this. Let's create, maybe we have 3-inch pots. And we're going to put that in not the fertilizer group. Let's do this. Let's refresh our page. Sometimes if you do refresh, that will pick up the new group. So if you run into that, like I just did, just refresh. So we'll do 3-inch pots. Let's do pot. And there are supplies. We can upload a photo of it if we want to. Or we can also specify a location. So for this one, we'll be doing home. And then we can give it a description and tags and amount. So maybe we have 30 of those. So this is a great way for you to keep track of your inventory, and you can adjust that inventory by just clicking on these little right and left little arrows here. So if you add to your inventory or take it away, this is just a great way for you to track everything that you have at your shop or your greenhouse or your house. All right, so next up we have our search, which this will let us search for pretty much anything that we have in our system that is plant related. So if we want to do a search for ferns, there's our ferns. We can click straight into that and it takes us to our ferns. Next up, we have our calendars. So if we have something on our calendar that we want to keep track of as well, maybe a specific date, we can do that here. So if you wanted to set up like a reoccurring watering or repotting or fertilizing, purchasing, cutting, treatments, other, you can also do all of this tracking through here. So let's do this. Let's do trim plants. And we'll just say that we're going to do it from the 30th to the 1st. And we'll add that. And there we go. We got our plants right there. And it looks like we can select our range, which will give us kind of the overall. Let's look here. 1 month. It's not bad. I think I would prefer it if it was like a regular calendar layout. I think that would be really cool, but I'm not going to complain. It's a good way to track events. All right, next up are things that I will show you how to integrate that may not be turned on when you initially install it, but I will walk you through all of that later on. We can, like for instance, the weather right here at the top right, this is picked up with a weather API to your specific location. It'll tell you kind of what the weather is, you know, what you should expect for the weather, even broken down per hour. So that's pretty cool. So next up we have our chat. So this is obviously going to be very, very lonely if it's just you in there, and it might be kind of strange if you're chatting with yourself, but I'm not going to judge. So this is really geared towards having multiple people in this system. That's why I think it's super great for a possible greenhouse business. So, you know, you can say, hey Bob, I watered all the plants. And you can send that and it'll show up in the chat. It'll also show you the things that you have done. It looks like you have a little bit of your audit trail in there. So you can see, hey, this is all the stuff that they accomplished when they were in the system. So that's pretty cool to be able to track that. History, I think, is basically the same thing. I think that it's mostly just for tracking activity, but there's nothing really in here that I have. Yeah, I haven't generated too much history. All right, now we have our profile. That profile, we can put personal notes. We can also click on this little gear here and we can specify our name. So if you wanted to change your name from something other than admin, you could do that too. You could do your default chat color, notifications. your language, as well as your theme, which is just one theme in here right now, but I'm sure you could probably find a couple more or customize them. And you can change your password here too. As we scroll down on our profile, it really just goes through and shows all of the logs from what we have done, anything that we have changed. This is kind of our history, as well as the plants that we have added. All right, next up, we're going to check out our admin area, which you can see at the top here with the gear. And there's a decent amount of options in here. I'm not going to spend a ton of time going over all of them. I think you can probably figure it out. So let's do this. I'm going to rename this. Oh, instead of my house, I want Ben's greenhouse. Next up, we have our time zone. So make sure you select the time zone that you are actually in. That will really help you as far as if you're tracking this sort of activity. You can see if somebody made a change, then it'll actually record the correct time. All right, next up we have the things that we want to enable about our site: scrollers, tasks, inventory. If you wanted to not use the calendar, you could disable it from here, as well as inventory and tasks. Same thing with chat and history. All this stuff is configurable and enabled or disabled. We also have the plant API that I've configured. I will show you how to set that up as well. This is the API key that I'm using, and I'll show you how we can use that in just a second. Next up, we have our enable photo sharing, if we want to be able to share images on another site. And then we have cron job authentication tokens. We don't really need to mess with that. And custom code for the header section. So if you wanted to add additional HTML at the top of the page, you could do that with a little bit of coding. And check it out, our Ben's greenhouse at the top here. Next, we have our media. So we can change our logos. We can change our background image. We can change the overlay and new message sounds. It does make a noise when you do something in the system, which is kind of cool. And you can change that, all configurable. Ton of options as well. I'm not going to spend too much time here. We have our users. Adding a user is very, very easy. The only thing that we will do is hit create, and we just need to give it a name and an email address. If you configured your email server, which I assume that if you're doing this for a business, you probably will, this will send them a confirmation email. Next up, we have our locations. I have just defined the location as home, but you can add additional locations. So let's say we have greenhouse B. We can change the icons for this, and the icons are configured by clicking on this link right here. This will open up this page that will list different icons that you can use. The only thing you need to do is take the text right here, where this is like Wi-Fi / and you would put that here. That's really all you have to do with the locations. Authentication. Do you want to enable proxy authentication? Probably not going to touch this. Not really any reason for me to go through that, honestly. If you wanted to do that, that's totally up to you. I'm not going to. Attributes. Allow users to manage custom plant attributes. So you can allow them to add different attributes. I think that's kind of cool. Right now, these are the questions that it asks when you added a plant. So like, check out, we can actually add custom ones, which that's really cool. That's we can put just about like this, location obtained or something. Maybe we wanted to track where we got a specific plant. We can do yes, no, integer, floating number, text, do text. So that's really cool. You can add more fields, which is kind of cool, or you can remove ones. So if you have specific plants where none of them are going to be perennials, annuals, or needing to be cutting, or we don't care about the data purchase, you can always unselect them or add new ones. So that is really, really awesome. That's all about forward thinking. We got our calendar. So these are the different things that are going to be up on our calendar, and the color codes that go along with them. So this is really cool because, again, you can add calendar class. So you can add multiple calendar events here, event types, and give them a certain color as identity and a name. So the only thing I'm not quite sure of is the class here. I'm assuming that you probably should check their documentation on that before you're adding different classes. but you know, don't have to take my word for it. You can experiment yourself. Lastly, we have our mail configuration. So this is where if you're configuring your mail server, I would suggest you do it here. If you are looking for an easy way to do SMTP, I would suggest looking at SMTP to go. They have a free plan and they also have some pay plans that are very reasonable. But honestly, the free plan for most smaller businesses would be perfect. And it gets you SMTP access without you having to try to set it up with like Google or Microsoft or something. I'm trying to figure out how that happens. Let's see. Next up, we have our themes. So if there are other themes that have been created, you can import them here. That's very cool. And now we have our backup. If you want to be safe and have everything backed up and exported off of your system, just in case something happens, this will be the place to do that. Or maybe you're moving from one system to another. You could export from here. And you also have an import option if you want to not have to recreate everything. And now we have our weather. This does use Open Weather Map. And you can get an API. I will show you how to do that during the installation process. And so you can get a free API that won't cost you anything, especially if you're not really hitting it all the time, which honestly, this software is probably not going to. And you can cache a certain number of seconds with weather. So if you're worried about going over your API limit, then you just adjust this cache duration to be something just like a little bit larger, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. So it has all the same stuff that you would need to configure your weather. You can specify your unit type, your longitude and your latitude for the location that you care about getting weather from. And then you have your API. Lastly, one of the few things we have left is the API keys for your workspace. So if you are working with this system and you need to be able to work with its API, it does have an API with it. You can generate a key. But honestly, I don't really see myself using that too much, but you know, everybody's different. And last but not least, we do have our info section where this will help you get support if you need it. It'll show you how to use some GitHub sponsoring if you want to sponsor this project, or maybe you just want to buy them a coffee, or you want to jump on. They do have, looks like they have a Discord, they have Mastodon and a YouTube channel. It looks like it also does have some information. You can view all the extensions that are loaded, and you can check for a new version. So if there's a new version, it'll tell you, hey, time to upgrade. All right, so the last thing that I want to show you is the ntNet API. That is something that you define under the environment section right here, and we're going to put in our API. I'll show you how to get that API and how to get get it set up for free. It won't cost you anything, and it's an awesome resource. And how you use that is really simple. Once you put the API key in here and you enable it, we can click on this little icon at the bottom right hand corner of your screen. It looks like a little magnifying, a little microscope. And then we provide it with a picture of the plant that we are kind of questioning, what in the world type of plant is this? And in a second here, we'll be churning and bubbling a little bit. And when it's done, it will present us with a little pop-up. And if we take a look at this, it's going to list us a couple of different species that it thinks that this plant is a member of. It's 64% sure that it is, however you say this, the Houseplants. It's one of those. Let's see if it's right, because its next suggestion is like 8%. So I'm just going to do a quick search for it. And there we go. It nailed it. Nice job. And one thing that I would love to see added, and this is just such a minor thing, is to be able to click on any of these and create a plant with this name. Right now, it's a little bit of copying and pasting action, but honestly, that is such a small request that, you know, feel free to ignore it, because I mean, like, the developer has put so much time and effort into every single part of this project that it's hard to like request something. Honestly, there's just so much. All right, well, let's go ahead and do this. Let's jump over to the installation part of this video. It's probably going to be the shorter of the two sections, just because we did have a lot to cover here, and I think we did a pretty good job of covering it. If you have any questions, you're always welcome to leave them down below. Let's go ahead and jump into the installation. I will see you there in just a second. All right, well, I hope you brought your green thumb and your typing fingers, because now we are going to install HortusFox. We're going to start off at their GitHub page, and I am just going to scroll down and just show you a little bit what you have here. All right, so what we have here is a very well laid out GitHub page. We have the different sections telling us exactly where to go to get to the different information, which I can totally appreciate. I love clicking on features. This shows you all the things that are currently in the software. We have an official home page, and we have documentation. Instead of going through all the different sections here, which I definitely encourage you to do, we are actually going to use the Docker Compose file that they have at the top of the page. But let's start off at the docker compose.yaml file. Here we have everything already defined that we need to do. I like this because he's already separated out into volumes, which I love. But we're going to go through this entire file anyway, so you know exactly what it's installing, so there's no surprises. Let's go ahead and copy this file, and let's go over to Portainer, and let's go to stacks, and let's create a new stack. And I'm just going to call this HortusFox and paste here. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into this file, and I'll explain to you what all it's doing. And if you have any questions, feel free to post them. All right, first up, we're going to be pulling our image from this location, and we are going to be pulling the latest version, which is good. Next up, we have our ports. And if you're deciding that you only want to run this locally, then you can just leave this alone. And what you'll do is you'll go to the IP address of your host, followed by the port 8080 that's specified here. However, if you are going to be internet facing this container, which we are going to be using Nginx Proxy Manager, we don't need to open these ports because Nginx will take care of all that for us. Next up, we do have our volumes, and this is specified and set up exactly how I would do it. We're defining our volumes up here at the top, and at the very bottom we'll be creating them, but this allows us to know exactly where the file is being stored, and really allows Portainer to track them a lot easier. We have some environment variables that are being configured here, which means we're probably not going to need that .env file unless there was something in there that you wanted to specify, but we're kind of putting all the usernames and passwords straight into the container file. Now, is this the best way of doing it? I don't know. It's really up to you. You could use environment variables. That's nothing stopping you from doing that. That's just the way that the developer has decided to tackle this particular request, but for right now we're fine to leave it as it is. If you do want to change your admin username and password, here is where you'll want to do that. So when you first sign in, this is the credentials that you're going to be using. However, if you wanted to leave them alone and just use the defaults and then manage your usernames and your passwords from within inside of HortusFox, that's totally fine. Or HortusFox. I'm just going to call it Hortus for short. We can specify our time zone here as well, or we can wait until later on. And we have our database, which is going to be HortusFox. Our username is user, our password is password. I would definitely encourage you to change this to something a little bit more secure, you know, like password 123, just in case. I mean, nobody should have access to your database, but you know, doesn't hurt. Next up, we have our depends on. This is saying that this container depends on the database running. If the database isn't running, we're obviously not going to try. And that makes sense. We have the database next, and that is going to be the creation of our MariahDB container database. If you did change your password, username, or any of the fields up here at the top, make sure you also change them down here in this. Otherwise, if they don't match, they're just not going to be able to connect. We have a restart policy of always, probably the same thing that we have up here. No, we don't have any restart policy. What? Let's do this. I like restart policies. I like to do this though. I'm going to say restart policy of unless stopped. This lets us, or lets the container fire up automatically unless you stopped it. So if your host goes down, your machine reboots, this will try to come up unless you stopped it before shutting the host down. Always is also fine, so it's up to you. Now we have our usernames and passwords that we've already taken care of. This is saying my MySQL or MySQL, whatever you want to call it. That's the root password. You may want to change the root password to Groot. 123. This is honestly a password you should not need, but in the event that you do need to gain access to the SQL database directly and do some manipulation or exporting there, it's a good password to at least know what it is. Ports we also have that are popping up as internet facing, and we really don't need that simply because we are not going to be accessing this database externally from the net. We're going to be accessing it only through the application or through some other container. So I'm also going to comment these out because the containers are going to be on the same network. So we really don't need to open up the ports to something else outside of that container network, if you get what I'm saying. The volumes are going to be the same way. We're going to be establishing the DB data here, and it's going to be pointing to that folder. And now at the very bottom, we have our volumes, and these are all the volumes that our system is going to need to create, and it needs to know to create them, and that's why we define them all down here at the bottom. So not too much to change, just a couple of commenting on some ports and a restart policy. All right, let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to deploy this stack. All right, and if we've done everything right, which I think we have, in a second here, we should get a nice, cool little green window that tells us that everything is hunky-dory. But if this is the first time that you are installing this software, it may take a couple of minutes. All done, or seconds. All right, next up, this is the time where I ask you, did you comment out those ports or not? Well, if you didn't, and then you've made a conscious decision to only keep this locally, well, good news, your part is done. You don't need to proceed with the Nginx Proxy Manager. You don't need to proceed with the subdomains or any of that stuff. You can just access your HortusFox from the IP address up here with the 8080, I believe it was, port number. But for the rest of us, we're going to keep on trucking, and we are going to set up Nginx Proxy Manager and our subdomains. So if we click on Nginx Proxy Manager, the first thing that we need to do is we need to make myself really small. Done. And let's scroll all the way to the bottom. And the reason we're going into our Nginx Proxy Manager is because we need to make sure it's on the same network as the HortusFox. Otherwise, it's just not going to be able to talk to it, and it's going to be really lonely. We're going to find our HortusFox_default, and let's join that network. Everything went right and good and well. You should see that you are connected to the HortusFox_default, and you have picked up an IP address. Groovy, we can now talk. Now it's time for us to set up our subdomain, and this will be the domain that we're going to use to get to our HortusFox server. Let's do this. I'm going to go, and I'm using Namecheap. I'm under advanced DNS settings. If you're using an alternative like GoDaddy or something, it's going to be basically the same thing. We're just going to be adding an A record. And the A record will allow us to set up our subdomain. So when you're adding an A record, think of it as you're adding some sort of word in front of your actual domain. In our instance, I'm just going to call it plants. And I'm going to use the IP address, external IP address of my server. And I'm going to save that. And it's just that easy with the DNS settings. Not even something you should keep yourself awake over. All right, next up, we are going to go to we're going to go to Nginx Proxy Manager. Almost made a mistake, but I didn't. All right, so once we are in Nginx Proxy Manager, let's go under proxy hosts. All right, so now that we are in our Nginx Proxy Manager, let's click on new host. And I've went off video mostly because my camera has decided it's way too hot in here and I have talked for too long. So not a problem. You don't need to see me. You'll be fine. All right, let's see here. For our domain, we're going to type in plants.synhow.com. Remember, that's the subdomain we set up. And now we're going to need to know where do we need to forward this traffic to? Where does it need to go off to? If you don't remember what the host name or the port name was, that's okay. I want to show you how to get to it. If we go under Portainer, zoom out, and go under containers, right here we have our HortusFox app 1. And this is going to be our host name. So we're going to copy this. obviously we don't want to forward it straight to the database. And we're going to paste this in here. And next up, it's asking us for the forward port. That is the port that we want to send our traffic to. What port was that container listening on? If you don't remember, it's okay. There's a couple of different places we can get it. We can go back to the original Docker compose file. We can also go back and under stacks if you wanted to, but this is just easier to get to. If we zoom in, the port that it was expecting to hear traffic on was 80. So we're just going to put 80. Remember, the 8080 is the port that it was going to make public on the internet, and that was the port that it was going to receive traffic from if you're coming from the internet. But we're not. We're coming through Nginx Proxy Manager, so we're going to keep it all on the container network. All right, so we're going to put 80 here. I'm going to block some common exploits. I'm going to enable WebSocket support, and I'm going to hit save. All right, so once we've saved that, that's the easy part. And the hard part's coming up right next is when we need to add some security to this. Obviously, we don't want it HTTP and unencrypted. We do need to add a cert. Let's click on the 3 dots and hit edit. And now we're going to go under SSL. We're going to drop this down and we're going to click request new cert. I'm going to force SSL and I'm going to agree to the terms of service and hit save. If you did everything right, you should get this window just disappearing. If you did something in a different order or something's not quite configured correctly with your DNS, you may get an error message, but we didn't. And I was just kidding about that being the hard part. That's actually pretty easy. All right, now we just need to test and make sure that all the pieces of the puzzle are going to come together and work for us. So let's click on plants. And if we did everything right, check it out. We're here. And we can sign in. It was at admin.example.com and password was our default. There we are. We are all signed in, ready to go. So you're ready to configure and get going with your HortusFox. Now I did promise to help you with the API as well. So let's do that. All right, for this next part, we're going to be using we're going to first establish our plant API key. So let's go ahead and do a quick Google search for that. And this is going to be the plant API for developers. All right, so once we are at the ntNet API, we are going to sign up for an account. And signing up is very easy. Just fill out the sections here and establish your account. And this will set you up for a developer account. I already have one, so I'm going to go ahead and sign in. All right, and once you are signed in, you'll see that I already have a couple of requests that I've sent to the API. And to get your API key, the only thing you need to do is hop on over here to settings. And you can generate your new API key here. Right now, we are on the free plan, which is totally cool. The free plan gives you 500 identifications per day. And honestly, that's probably more than enough. If you needed additional identifications, you can go all the way up to, it looks like 200,000 identifications per year, which is insane. But it looks like it's also about 1,000 euros. So honestly, you'll probably be fine with 500. You might not be using it that much. That's the plan that I have went with, and it's served me very well. All right, now that we have our API from PlantNet, only thing we have to do is come over to our HortusFox, paste it in there, enable plant recognition, enable quick scan widgets, and hit save. Now, the other API keys that we will want to put into our software so we can especially get our weather, that's really important, is the weather API. So this one is a little bit trickier. I'm just going to do a quick Google search for open weather map. And I'm going to click on this very first one I have here. So there is a whole bunch of APIs that are in this particular service. So if you go under API, you may be looking at this and being a little bit confused, especially since there are so many different options for you to choose from. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom and I'm just going to hit subscribe for free. I'm going to fill out my username and password. I'm just going to make me an account really quick. once you have signed up, it's going to ask you for a company, and I'm just going to put home, and the purpose will be for other. Save. Okay, once you have set up your account, the only thing you need to do is obviously you may want to confirm your email address, but what we'll do is we'll go under APIs and we'll make sure that we have set ourselves up a HortusFox API. This will probably ask you just to give it really a quick name since this will be your first API. Once we do have this code, let's head on over to our HortusFox and paste it in here. And now we are going to need to know our longitude and our latitude. The easiest way to find this, you can hit detect geolocation if you want and let it try to detect your location. But if you wanted to be a little bit more precise, you could go to latlonge.net, and then what you'll do is you'll simply find the location that you live in the world, or the one at least that you want weather from. And let's say I wanted to get it from Edmonton. I can just go ahead and pop in that little pin there, and it'll give me my longitude and my latitude right here. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to head back, and I'm going to do my latitude. I'm going to go back, grab my longitude, and paste that in there. Make sure you select the unit type that you want to see, and adjust your cache duration to whatever you think is appropriate. Usually I set it a little bit higher than 300. You can put it at 600. Honestly, how often do you really need to be pulling weather anyway? Probably not all that often. So let's hit save here. Once you do, you'll be presented with this cool little weather icon, which you can click, and it will give you a list of your weather. You can also go home, and sometimes the weather will pop up here too in the top right. I want to show you something very interesting that I ran into when I first did this. Let's see if I can get it to reproduce it. I'm going to do a test one. I'm going to generate this API key. I want to do this in case you run into this exact same situation. Always want you to be prepared for any sort of hiccups. So if I paste in this API key, and let's try to hit my weather again. Yeah, this is perfect. So if you do get this, or if you hit home and you also get this, you may be freaking out and be like, what in the world did I do wrong? You did nothing wrong. Good thing. The problem is that the open weather API takes a while to generate and actually become active. So even though you can generate the API key, it does not mean that it's active and ready to go. So if you give it about maybe an hour, 30 minutes to an hour, typically that's enough time. Come back here and you should not get this message again. So not a problem there, but I wanted you to be prepared for that just in case you ran across it. Well, that's pretty much the only APIs that I really needed to walk you through setting up. The rest of the stuff is pretty much self-explanatory, but if you have any questions, you're always welcome to leave them down below. All right, well, I think that pretty much about does it. That was a long video, but we did have a lot to cover, and I hope you found this video beneficial. And I also hope that you have much better luck than I do when it comes to plants. So hopefully this will help you. And if you do have any questions or comments, suggestions, please leave them down below. Otherwise, I really appreciate you spending some time with me, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.